scrumptious lunch. Lots to choose from here. And thank you for staying with us throughout the day. I know it's very tempting on these days to take some time for yourself, but I'm hoping that you're finding these sessions useful. So for the last part of the day, we have a special guest with us, and I'm going to let Michael introduce himself and give you his background, but we asked him to come and share the work that he's doing with all of you because we think it's really fantastic, and we're hoping that we can get this work happening in more schools across the Bronx. So welcome, Michael. Please
Okay.
round of applause.
Thank you. My last name is pronounced Yashik if you're in Lithuania, and here in Ellis Island they say Jazz, so everybody calls me Jazz. Where do I start? Well, first of all, I just in the back are all of our college interns. Some have just graduated. We have an office in the city, and our program, we're the Relationship Foundation. As you see, you all have a folder about that. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background on how our program evolved. Much of what I'm going to share with you today has already been shared. I've learned so much in Deb and Yesenia's class. So for those of you who are in it, I'm sure you know what I mean. So I almost feel like I'm going to be going over a lot of what was already said, but perhaps in a different way. And this is Troy, by the way. He's been with me for 10 months. He's going back to college. He took a year off to help us organize and put together the technology, the PowerPoint. So thank you, Troy. Okay. Troy went to Bronx Science, by the way, and did not get in trouble. Or did you? No. Okay. Okay. I started studying relationship authors about 15 years ago, 16 years ago, because I had a lifetime of difficult relationships. Does anyone know anyone like that? I started working with an administrator from the lab school. It's in Chelsea. He had gone through what he described as 18-year relationship, in one word, torturous. Does anyone know anyone in a torturous relationship? A few people. No one's ever been in one, right? After a few months of working with him, he said, well, you know, I don't hate women anymore, and I think I would like to get married again. And would you come in and speak to a group of junior boys in my high school? And I said yes, because I couldn't find the no. Do you ever have an experience, you know you have to do something like bungee jumping, but something, you know, I mean, perhaps you knew you were supposed to go into education, but maybe you were tempted to do something else. And I came in and started speaking with these boys. It was a group of junior boys about relationship dynamics. And I could see they weren't paying attention. And I did something that isn't characteristic. I found myself standing up and saying, listen up, like a drill sergeant. Some of you may have had to speak like that. And later that day, when the administrator spoke with the principal and emailed me and saying, he said he told the principal he had not seen a group of boys transformed in 42 minutes in his 10 years in the school. Would I teach relationship ed as a component of health ed? And I said yes, because I couldn't find the no. And thus began 9 of the hardest years of my life. And we've been in 30 schools now, 2 colleges. We've developed a curriculum. We have a couple copies. Feel free if you can stay. We're happy to stay here till midnight. How late can we stay? Take a look at our curriculum. I'll describe a little bit about that. We've already also written a book, and we're going to pass out some sign-up sheets, so if anyone would like a copy, we can send you a PDF, and I hope by the end of this talk you'll like to take a look at it, because a number of the subjects that I'm going to discuss today, several in particular, are in the book. And what's also unique about our program in the curriculum is in the very beginning we have kids keep journals on how they see relationships portrayed in society, the things that they see on the internet that are supportive of relationships. Unfortunately, a lot of what they see is degrading to relationships. A lot of things are objectification of women, and to much lesser extent to boys and men as well. And what I think you can do if you have either an advisory or health ed is to have kids keep journals on how they see relationships. I was in one class where the teacher who had the kids in a SAT literacy prep course excused them to be in our class because they were more interested in writing about relationships than the War of 1812. No offense to the history teachers, and that's, but they do want to write about it. And I'm going to read just one quick, before each chapter we have a journal entry from the kid that's pertinent to the chapter. This is a 16-year-old boy. He says, "What honestly is love? Is it an emotion, feeling, or an action? I feel that our biggest necessity is companionship and to be loved and give love. Strange, affectionate creatures, always trying to express emotions for one another in a variety of ways. I believe our affectionate emotions on from the greatest thing humans have, understanding. We want to understand others and be understood." So these are the kind of things that they write. Some are a little simpler, but kids really want to write about what's going on. And this was a student who was supposed to keep his journal every week, supposed to submit 2. I think it was a 10-week session. He wrote all 10 at the end, because they were graded on this as well. What we do is and the thing that I'm going to go over most of the day is what we call social skills. And then after we develop these social skills, then we look at social concerns, bully prevention, self-esteem and body image, effect of the media, healthy boundaries, what I call excessive use of communication technology, aka cell phones, and also preventing cycles of abuse. So today what we're going to focus on is we're going to start off with empathy and go into the communication skills, and I'm also going to talk about something called the adverse childhood experiences. Has anyone heard about that? It's a study. Okay, so this might be some new information. We also do parent workshops. We have videos of parents talking about mostly about this empathy piece, which I'm going to introduce in a moment. And we actually have been meeting with directors at Scholastic because they're interested in getting our curriculum out to schools around the country. And my choice would be to get it into the Bronx first because we're working a lot here. And so a lot is in motion now. We feel very strongly that relationship education should be part of our learning process. So a few questions. How many of you know at least 50 people? Okay. 100. If you're in a school, 200, right? So do you have a different relationship with all those people? So if I ask you, are you in a relationship? Do you look at me and say, what kind of question is that? I know 200 people. Why has the word relationship come to mean significant other? And it's because of so much of it's media. Magazines, TV, movies, it's all about what happens, can you live happily ever after? And we are social creatures. We would like to have a partner, and especially in our sort of fragmented society, it's become even more important. Some of you, from what I've heard in some of the other, in some of the workshops I've been in, live in communities where it is more close-knit and have close-knit families. But for probably most of our country, we don't have that anymore. People have moved away from home. They're far away from their friends and neighbors. Next question is, how do you get good at a sport? A language? A musical instrument? A relationship? How many of you, your parents, grandparents, caretakers said, go out and practice our relationship? Okay. I did not want to practice my parents' relationship. And one of the things that I'll get into is there's no blame. I dedicated my book to my mother and my father. My father was a workaholic. I really never saw him. I remember him playing with me when I was 10. For about 15 minutes, he said, "I'm tired." I never asked him again. Anyone know a situation like that? My mother was kind of disconnected, so, but the thing is, you have to ask, I had to ask myself one day, after doing lots of therapy, about what's wrong with my mom and dad, is one day I said, who instructed them? So my grandparents were born when the light bulb was relatively new. 100 years ago, the life expectancy was 42. You didn't learn, no one wrote a book and said, hey, in 2017, you're gonna live to 90. So how do we cultivate and sustain relationships over 50, 60, 70 years? Because some of us will be in relationships with friends, family, significant other for that length of time. So that's part of the reason we want to introduce this work. How do we get to have, how can we build healthy relationships? And the work that we do helps to build resilience. I hope today I'm going to give you a few practical tools that you can add to what you're already doing. Let's go to, I'm going to start with empathy. This is the dictionary definition. The ability to share and understand the feelings of another person. So, does anybody have empathy for me? Do you know what I'm feeling? Do you know what it's like to be up in front of 100 people? You've probably heard many people said they would rather die than speak in front. So, unless I tell you what I'm feeling, you wouldn't be able to have empathy for it. I mean, I can tell you right now, I feel excited, I feel grateful, I feel nervous, I feel anxious, I feel worried, I feel delighted. So we can have more than one feeling. In fact, what was interesting in a school I was in, it was a school in Harlem, we asked the kids how they're feeling to begin the class. And I'll never forget, one of the girls came in and said, well, I feel devastated and I feel excited. So she had become articulate. She said, well, something went on at home this morning that was kind of devastating, but I'm really excited to be at school. So we can, even right now, if you think about it, you might be worried about doing something has to get done today, but you might be curious and interested. You might be pleased, you might be grateful, you might be frustrated. So we can have many feelings and at the same time. So we're going to hand out, we're going to do quickly an empathy exercise. Does anybody have to be out at a sharp 2:30? Okay, because we might go a little bit over. Yes? Okay, so I'm going to talk fast. I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where people talk really slow. Not quite as slow as further south, but, and no, I'm not Amish. But I actually grew up in a neighborhood where we would see the horse and buggies going past, and we just didn't think anything about it. And now when I go back home for high school reunions, I'm fascinated by the Amish culture. Okay, so we're going to do an empathy exercise. Does everybody have the handout? Okay, we're still passing these out. Okay, everyone has it? Okay, if you're sitting at a table, that's going to be your partner. So one will be A and one will be B. The person with the longest hair is A, which, yes, it's hard for us. We never get to be A. Okay, and if you both have the same length of hair, just flip a coin. And who doesn't have a partner? Raise your hand if you don't have a partner. Okay, can we get you two together? Okay, now everybody has a partner? Are we all set? Okay, if anyone doesn't have a partner, one of the interns can join you, okay? Who needs a partner? Okay, we're ready to go? Okay. First of all, take your left index finger and point to your left eye. Look at your partner. Okay? Face your partner. Now, and look in both of their eyes. Turn your seat a bit so you can look in both of their eyes. Okay, so have you ever said to a student, look at me, look in my eyes? Okay, now when you look and take your finger down, now look in your partner's eyes again. You notice you can't look in both eyes. Your eyes go back and forth because one eye is looking at both of them. So now take your left index finger again and point to your left eye. Now watch this. Look in your partner's left eye. Notice you're not missing the right eye. So as we do this exercise, if you can remember, Haley, do you need a seat to do this? Okay, come get a seat. Okay, so I learned this a long time ago. If you probably will notice this more as I look at people, look at you in the seating. I'm looking in your left eye, but I'm not missing the left eye side is supposed to be the more vulnerable side. So this isn't a religion. If you want to look in the right eye, it's fine. But do you notice the difference? You don't miss the right eye, but your left eye is connecting. So now this is an empathy exercise. What we've discovered is we block empathy a lot. If you've started to look at this, so how many of you are not in a significant other relationship? Just a few. Almost everybody is, I think. Okay. So sometimes it's a little challenging to get empathy from your significant other. Do we agree on that? Okay. Okay. So, but what we do in work life, with friends, family, is that we think we're making conversation. So someone says, I had a really bad day today. The train was late. My lunch got spoiled, and none of the kids were behaving. And you say this to a friend, and what do they say? They say, you had a bad day. Let me tell you about my bad day. It's called one-upping, if you see it on your list. Well, advising. Maybe if you got up earlier. There's a good book on time management, advising, educating, and we think we're being polite in a way, making conversation, analyzing. Has anyone ever said, I've heard this like 3 times this week? We say these things to each other. That's a little harsher. Consoling, all right, the day's over. We don't want to hear anymore. The day's over, so just forget it. Discounting, shouldn't you be glad you have a job? So we do this, and we do this, and we're not doing anything wrong. This is what we do in our culture. So, think of something that annoyed, disappointed you, disturbed you. Nothing tragic, like the city knocks on your door and says, we're going to build a highway through your house. You have to move out in 2 months. Nothing tragic. Okay, just something like I just mentioned here. Take 10 seconds, think about it, then you're going to switch, and then B's going to say something that happened to them, and you're going to do empathy blocking. Each one of they're not going to repeat what annoyed you, disappointed you, but partner A is going to tell partner B, and B is going to go through all those empathy blockers. Does everybody understand this? Everybody got it? Okay, and then we're going to switch, and then we're going to do empathic listening. So begin.
I'm the person that has the problem?
Yeah, tell him your problem, and he's going to block empathy.
Okay.
Okay, 15 more seconds. Okay. Time to switch partners. Switch partners, everybody. Okay. Partner B. Partner. It's really hard to get people to stop doing this exercise. It's very revealing. Are you looking in their left eye? Okay. partner B now tell partner A something, and in partner A, you block empathy, okay? Begin. Send Jordan to get around to the side and get even more of a...
Jordan, the other guy?
Yeah. Tell him what to do. Okay. Guys, it's the same thing. They start... How many of you were laughing hysterically? Or a little bit of laughter. So there's something funny about this, and it's not funny. Because we all want to be received. Come to a close over there. So this exercise can evoke a lot of discussion with students when you work with groups to get them, because they start to see, oh, look at this habit I have. So because we have a limited amount of time, we'll just do the second part is A, say to B, B, and then switch. We'll just take 30 seconds. Somebody says I have a hard time, you say, I hear you. And Deb did this a number of times this morning in her class. I hear you. How would you like to come home to your significant other, talk about what a hard day it was, and your partner says, I hear you. Tell me more. But if, and you have to mean it, tell me more. Or I have to go to a meeting in 5 minutes. Tell me more, I'm leaving in a couple minutes, but I'll be back. So I hear you and tell me more. Can I have everybody's attention, please? You're in an elevator and someone's complaining about the weather and parking and on and on. I just say, I hear you. I mean, in the back of my mind, I wish you would talk about something else, but you know, or, but there's also something, if you say it softly, like from your heart, in a way, I hear you. And someone, like, especially the kids you're working with, tell me more. Tell me more. It just, instead of advising, fixing, one-upping, I mean, you can do, and the way, I'm going to keep referring to Deb because I could have sat in her class for another 3 hours. Who was in her class today? Deb's class? Okay. I got so much out of the way she explained how to work with kids. So this is our empathy exercise. Does anybody want to share anything about this? Anybody have anything? Yes? You didn't do anything wrong. No. Yeah, because we tend to judge ourselves. Like when I first discovered this, it was like an aha moment. Okay, well now I don't have to do it anything, and I'll say more about why you didn't do anything wrong, because you're doing what we all do. So is there anybody that hasn't done empathy blocking, or been blocked? Yeah. Okay, so that's empathy. I want to briefly talk about the adverse childhood experiences. Can we pass that around, everyone? The adverse childhood experiences, well, I'll just give you a little backstory. In 2012, in May, I saw an article on the internet that said suspension days drop 85%. I said, okay, I want to read this. So it was a story about a principal in Walla Walla, Washington. If you ever heard of Walla Walla. Onions, it's actually a native name. The native people called that area Walla Walla. And he had gone to a conference on brain science, learned about toxic stress to brain chemistry, and found out about the ACEs study, adverse childhood experiences. And what he found out, and what was in this study, was a little background. There was a doctor in San Diego. His name's Vincent Folletti, and he had a weight loss clinic. And people were coming in and losing 100 pounds, 200 pounds, and then dropping out and gaining the weight back. And he couldn't understand, why are they dropping out? So he went out, he started reaching out to people who had dropped out. Can I meet with you and ask you a few questions? And the first woman that he, was a woman that he met, and he said, well, how much did you weigh in first grade? How much did you weigh when you graduated high school? And he meant to say, how old were you when you first had sex? But he said, how much did you weigh? And she said, 40 pounds. My father raped me when I was 4 years old. And then he found this happened again and went to one person after another. And he wound up teaming up with somebody from the Center for Disease Control. And they began a study and over a 2-year period, which has continued today. And what they've discovered in their study with over 17,332 people is that 2/3 of the population has at least one adverse childhood experience. So you have the list there, and you can see those each of the adverse childhood experiences. So what happened, you see there's 3 abuse, 2 neglect, and 5 family dysfunction. What the CDC is calling this study is the nation's worst health crisis, and it's least known because we don't want to talk about our ACEs. You don't go to a social event and say, how many ACEs do you have? We don't want to we don't want to experience the shame. So I have 3 ACEs. I don't remember anybody holding me, saying I love you, how was school? So that's emotional neglect. As I said, my father was always at work, and I think my mother may have been mentally ill or very depressed because she lived her life in Philadelphia. All of a sudden she's in Lancaster, and my dad's never there, and she doesn't have community. And so, that's my abandonment, a parent lost to abandonment or divorce. And these are traumatic experiences, but we don't think about it. We're starting to talk about it more in society. What is trauma? And so what the principal did at this school, his name was Jim Sporleader. After I read about him, and I sent him an email saying, I can't believe you're doing this. And there were already 400,000 hits on the article about his school. And I didn't expect to hear back from him, but an hour later, I can't believe you're doing this in New York. So what happened is we began a 4-month bromance. Emails, phone calls, and he eventually brought me out there, and I gave a day-long presentation similar to this for his entire staff. And what happened when Jim went back to his school is he realized that in this small town, you say F you to the teacher, you're out 5 days. A little different than the Bronx, I guess, right? The language kids use. So what happened was he instead of saying what's wrong with you, he would say what happened to you. Well, my father's drinking and my mom's not around and I have to feed my brothers and sisters. And the kid would come in red zone, angry, full of upset, calm down into yellow and to green, would go back to the teacher, apologize, and suspension days in a 2-year period went from 796 to 135. Graduation rates went up 5 times. That's what I read about. And a week after I was at the school, James Redford came in and spent a year in the school documenting how the teachers worked with these kids. And that film is out now, and I highly recommend it. It's in the handout. It's called Paper Tigers. And the reason it has that title is because these kids didn't know the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat, a real tiger and a paper tiger. So the film is quite enlightening, and I think Maria might be able to send everybody a link for it as well. So Jim is now has left the school. He's traveling. He's actually written a book. I have it here. It's called The Trauma Informed School. Has anyone ever heard about this? Well, what happened to these kids is for the first time in their life, they had one caring, stable adult. And that changed everything. And you can see it in the film. And from this things I've heard people saying, I'm getting that so many of you are that caring, stable adult for these kids. But what has to happen to create a trauma-informed school is it has to start at the top. Has to start with the principal. There's no principals in here, right? Some deans, I think, right? There's some deans we spoke to. So it has to be school-wide down to the janitors, cafeteria staff. Everyone has to come to an agreement that these kids are not problem kids. They come from problem situations. So if we could build this awareness throughout the school system, I think we'd see everyone is always asking for statistics. Suspension days drop 85%. Graduation rates go up 5 times. Who doesn't want that? What school, what community doesn't want that to happen? So there's also certain health consequences that they discovered that people had. What Jim did with his students, he had them anonymously answer the ACEs questionnaire. And they had 4.5, which is critical. Does anybody know someone that probably has 4 or more of these ACEs? All right. And so the thing is that there's a lot of consequences, not only because kids can't learn, they can't absorb abstract terms. Math is the hardest thing. What happens? Everyone heard the brain science story? Okay, so here it is. You know, you're 7 times more likely to wind up in jail. Lung disease, cancer doubles. All of these things, and these are statistics. This is 17,332 people, and most of these people were white and middle class. So in poorer areas, it's even higher. There's a Philadelphia ACEs study where these statistics are much higher. So trauma is really life-threatening. And for kids, they just go into fight, flight, or freeze. Someone looks at them, says the wrong, something about, their shoes, and they're right away they're ready to go into a fight or to flee. Trauma, they say trauma is not a one-time incident, and exposure on a regular basis puts one in constant survival. Cortisol is the stress chemical that's released in our brains, adrenaline. And so what's interesting is, if you're out in the woods and you see a bear, the top of your brain, the frontal lobe, reasoning and logic, you don't say, there's a bear. I probably should get my computer picked up, because if that bear charges me, that's going to be a problem. And do my kids know where the key? You're not thinking like that. Should I run? Where do I go? Is there any way to fight? Fight, flight, or freeze. The problem with a lot of kids today is the bear comes home at night, and this constant release of these chemicals it actually toxifies their system. So understanding this can give us more compassion and understanding, and perhaps even patience for the kid. So that's a bit about the ACEs. I'll just read a couple other notes I have about it. It says their normal is fear, failure, and reactivity. Students with disruptive behaviors, they're their coping mechanisms. We don't think about that. This is how they're coping with life. Their brains are overloaded with stress hormones. They're unable to function properly. They develop unhealthy relationships. They create problems with teachers and administrators. They're unable to trust adults, and the world is a place of constant danger. So we can start to think about that, and I think probably most of you already know this and consensus about the kids, but here's a study that shows how the brain chemistry is so unstable that they can't remember. And I think there's a part of the brain, I think it's called the hippocampus. It stores its memories. So if you learn about whatever they're learning in their classes, they can't. I had trouble. I'm surprised I'm here today, because I could not sit still in school, and I couldn't remember anything. I'm not sure. I think my teachers, this is Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I think they just said, who wants to give him a C and who wants to give him a D? Because if he's here for another year, he's going, I'll go crazy. But you probably don't imagine that to hear me today. But I think, I wasn't so much disruptive as agitated, uneasy. The world was not a safe place for me. A student whose brain has been affected by complex trauma cannot psychologically take in new information. They're stuck in survival mode. So Troy, Now trauma, this, according to the American Psychological Association, this is how they describe trauma, but it's actually much more. And so let's show a picture of the brain. So this is a brain that's under stress. You can see the electrical flow is reduced. This is someone whose brain is somewhat healthy. So the science is in now about what happens to us when we're exposed to trauma. Okay, so I want to go into some of the work that we're doing that helps to build resiliency, because that's really what it's about. The empathy I hope you will see that as a practical tool. We've worked with different groups of educators and people in the school system, and they said, well, what are the practical tools? Introducing this empathy, the kids respond to this remarkably. And then you can share with them. It's like, practicing after a while. You see, oh, I've been empathy blocking. I'm gonna think about saying, I hear you. Tell me more, depending on who the person is. Next, we're going to start with, let's see, we did this, how much? Something called nonviolent communication. Excuse me, Ed, don't shoot this part. That's Ed, my friend Ed in the back there. Ed went to journalism school, Columbia, and he can start conversations with people on the street for 2 hours. He is just a consummate people person, and he really believes in our work and wants to teach it as well. So nonviolent communication. Has anyone ever seen this book, heard of it? Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg? Okay. We don't think of ourselves as violent people, generally. We associate with wars and beatings and killings, right? So someone says to you, that was stupid. You waste so much time. What's wrong with you? Words can hurt. And why are we a warring planet? Oh, your nation's no good. Yeah, your nation's no good. You want to know something? Bang, out comes the gun. So violence really starts, verbal violence. And NVC, as we call it, nonviolent communication, is a way of sort of reframing how we express ourselves and how we see others. And it's based on four concepts, it's not really a process, it's observation, needs, feelings, requests. And did we pass that out? The needs, no, we didn't pass that out yet. No, we're not passing it out yet. Hold on, everyone. So observations. So if you were a camera, what would you see? Man talking, right? You wouldn't see talks too fast, talks too slow, should get some Rogaine, to this, to that, right? So we're constantly judging, right? We're on the street, get out of my way, kids doing this and that. But observation and having kids do this, say, what do you see if you were a camera? It gives you a sense of, what would the world look like? So for me right now, what do I see? I see people sitting in chairs. Am I intimidated? They already know this, and so I could be busy judging myself. Needs. What are my needs? What are the feelings associated with needs? And the R is request, making a request instead of a demand. What NVC does is it teaches us how to recognize anger before it becomes violence and how to understand and deal with it before it becomes rage. So let's pass out the needs and feelings list. If everyone will look at the needs side first. And there's nothing new about NVC. What you're going to get, you know all these words, and it's how we use them. So what Rosenberg says, he says, the enormity of suffering on our planet requires more effective ways of distributing much-needed skills in communicating with respect and empathy. I was struck by that, the enormity of suffering on our planet. And I'm guessing for many of you, the enormity of suffering that you see in the schools with so many of the students that you're working to help. So does everybody have a copy now? Everyone has a copy of the needs and feelings? Take a look on the needs side. So if you'll just, you could take, if you don't have a pen or a pencil, look on the right side. There's all in alphabetical order. The need that I have for being here is contribution. That's what gets me up in the morning. Contribution, purpose. In the school, what are some needs you might have? Effectiveness, efficiency, competence, learning. So take a look at that list here and think about what your kids need, what you need. In the middle, under peace, I actually laminate this. I carry it with me everywhere. Who doesn't have a need for harmony? Peace of mind, ease. What student do you have that doesn't have a need for peace of mind? On the left side, under connection, this could be family, friends, but significant other. So we start seeing someone. Do we talk about our needs? Because I had emotional neglect, so I have a need for warmth. That's at the bottom of that list on the left side. But affection, acceptance, appreciation, care, closeness, belonging, consideration, empathy, inclusion, partnership, nurturing, love. I looked at this so many times, so I'm aware that a respect, self-respect, to see and be seen, to be heard, shared reality, something we'd like to have with people we're close to. So looking at these needs, these are in a sense, there's kind of universal. In the middle is play, adventure, but we're not used to expressing our needs and talking about them. So if you go to a play with a friend and you start laughing, do you turn to your friend and say, you know, that really met my need for humor? You say, that was funny, right? But we don't talk like this. So in the beginning, practicing articulating needs and feelings is a little clunky. But then you start to see yourself and another person, and it helps you to articulate. So has anyone ever been called inconsiderate? Raise your hand if you haven't been called inconsiderate. Okay. Is there anyone that hasn't called somebody inconsiderate? Most of us have called somebody inconsiderate, right? So let's say a report has to be into the principal's office. You're working with some colleagues, and it doesn't get done. And you say, you know, that was inconsiderate. But we don't say, you know, I'm feeling disappointed and anxious because I have a need for consideration. Could you tell me what's going on? And we don't talk like that. And that person might say, you know, I had to run out at lunch. My grandfather's in the hospital. I had to go do this. We never know what's going on with someone. But we're quick to say they're inconsiderate or they're selfish. You know, this is what creates violent communication. So understanding our needs, inclusion. So I grew up in punishing silence. I meet somebody. We fall in love. I actually like to say I rise in love as opposed to fall. The chemicals are going. 6 months into it, she says, I don't think this is going to work out. But that's not going to happen because I'm going to find out about her childhood. And she says, you know, my parents or whoever took care of me were hovering, micromanaging, or controlling. Anyone had that experience? Okay, so I had punishing silence. Dad's not around, mom's disconnected, so I need inclusion. She needs space. So it's over, right? It's never going to work out. No, I already know. So I'm regularly saying, do you need space? And the more you give someone space, once they feel safe in having space, what are they going to say? Let's spend more time because you're safe. So there's a way to work out. We can all have different needs and different strategies to get them met, but the needs don't conflict. Can you see how you can work it out? So when your needs are met, how do you feel? Good, great. How about when your needs are really, really met? Wonderful. Really, really met. Fabulous, right? Okay. So if you look on your feeling side, you won't see wonderful and you won't see great there. So when my needs are met, and I keep this list handy, I might feel grateful, appreciative, delighted, pleased. So we tend to use the word, we use the words needs and feelings. We'll say, I need to take a break. Do you see a break here? So, but well, I see rest and comfort. I need to get a new car. Do you see car on the needs list? So you might have a need for movement and efficiency, but we use need a lot. I feel like going to the movies. I feel like having some pizza. Do you see pizza on the, is pizza feeling the movies? I feel like you never listen to me. Do you see never listen to me on the feelings list? Now, many of you probably all know, already know the word you never, you always. So if someone says you're always late, right? Do I hear a moan back there? Okay. That's how you start a fight. Is there anyone here who knows anyone who's always late? Have they never ever been on time once in their life? As far as you know. Okay. Well, generally, no one is always this or never that. Always and never, you may have heard, are fight starters. So this is, we get kids to start to articulate their needs and feelings. And what do you call someone who doesn't have any needs? Dead. Well, there's air, food, shelter. So no needs. But you see, the needs are about life. These are about our life force. So getting your kids, getting friends, family, significant other, say, well, what are your needs? What need do you have for harmony? Do you have a need for harmony? For me, it's inclusion, friendship. So I have a need for friendship. Has anyone ever had a friend that you lost a friend for reasons that you wish it hadn't happened? So how did you feel? Oh, I felt sad. I felt discouraged. I felt disappointed. I felt scared. So becoming articulate and giving your kids this needs and feelings list, so they come to you or you have to go to them. How are you feeling? What are you needing? So for a lot of kids, it's going to be respect. I need respect. Do you have is that a common one for kids that get in trouble? Or I need understanding. So this is a communication tool that we have found very effective. In fact, in stacks of evaluations that we have from kids that we've worked with for over a period of time, they said that the thing that was most beneficial to them was learning to see people as people with needs and feelings. What time is it? 2? Okay. Let me just go here. I think we have time. So, Troy, okay, so everything we've ever done, everything we're doing now, and everything we will ever do is to meet a need. So we are needs-meeting people. The kids you work with want to have their needs met. Sometimes they want to have their need met for adventure and fun and excitement, and that disrupts a class. So you can say, do you have these needs that are important to you? Yes. Can you see that the other kids in the class have a need for learning and growth and creativity and competence? And so would you be willing to do whatever you're doing that's disrupting the class after the class so everyone can get their needs met? And there was a class that I was in where some boys were doing this and being disruptive, and the teacher started yelling at them. And I said, well, what do you think Miss Smith's feeling? And they all pulled out this, irritated, upset, frustrated, anxious, disappointed, really worried. What is she needing? Well, what's the main need she has? Learning. Okay, and I said, so how many have a need for learning? Everyone raised their hand, including the boys who were being disruptive. So I said, would you be willing to take this outside afterwards? So it's not, you can try, all of this is, try it out. See, there's ways, from what I've heard today already, there's so many training opportunities that have given you skills to work with kids more effectively. I hope that you can add this in a way to your toolbox. So feelings, we did feelings, Troy. Let's go to the next one. So feelings guesses. Do you remember anyone saying to you, you seem angry, you seem upset, when you weren't, but they told you how you were feeling? You seem annoyed, you seem frustrated, you seem confused. So when people say, you tell us how they think we're feeling, we might not be feeling that. So these are called feelings guesses. So you're a student that you're working with, or a group of students where there's concerns. You can say, I'm wondering if you're feeling, and even look at your feelings list. Have them. I'm wondering if you're feeling upset. I'm guessing you might be feeling this. Is it that you're feeling? So this takes us a way of telling someone what they're feeling, and it also lets them in on what's really going on for them. But it's not telling someone this is what I see going on with you, because I think you've all had someone say that, and it's not very pleasant, and especially if that's not the feeling. But even if it is, it's so much. It creates more connection by using these. There's several more, but these are the main ones that you can use. So, Troy, do we have the? Where's the world conflict? Did we go past that? Okay. This is pretty much the world we live in, right? Was anyone watching the news a moment ago? Is this what was going on? Blame, right, wrong, this world. These are tough times, and they've always been tough times. So let's go back to, where did we leave? Let's go to strategies. Okay, so we all have strategies to meet our needs, and I want to illustrate this in a story, something that happened to me about 3 years ago. I was working with a school in Queens. I live in the East Village, and the school didn't have money for journals. These are the journals I mentioned. They didn't have funds for that. They had already paid us our fee and didn't have funds, and we were developing this journal approach. And so I went to a 99-cent store and bought. I had 55 kids in the class, so I had 2 bags. I had to get on my bike, go to the L train, took the L to Union Square, took the 6 to Grand Central, and the 7 to Jackson Heights. 3 trains. And you all are probably familiar. You come out of the train, there's a flight of stairs, and then a sort of a flat spot, and then the next stairs. I'm coming down these stairs, and I get close to the first platform, and I see someone coming up very slowly. And then I see someone on the sidewalk with that hurried look in their face. And if they went around, I'm thinking, if they go around that person, I'm to stop in my tracks. So I remember thinking, don't. They did. I had to stop my tracks. First words that came to my mind were thoughtless, inconsiderate. I won't use some of the words that I might have thought a couple of years before, but I was starting to get out of the judgment, but still thoughtless and inconsiderate. As my foot touched the sidewalk, I said, well, I wonder what their needs are. What was this person's needs? Maybe they're going to a hospital to see their Aunt Eva. I had an Aunt Eva. She was more like, Aunt Eva loved me. That's met my needs for love. Maybe she's going to see Aunt Eva, who has an hour to live, who met her needs for love, affection, acceptance, appreciation, warmth, closeness, care, belonging, inclusion. All these needs are met. What was her strategy to meet her needs? It included cutting me off. But is she thoughtless and inconsiderate? Maybe a week before, she pulled somebody out of a pool and saved their life. Maybe she raises funds for a senior citizen. So I'm imagining all the things that this person was that wasn't thoughtless and inconsiderate, and it was like a switch flipped in my mind, because now it was like I was free. I don't know who she is. We can't stop and interview everyone that bumps us on the sidewalk, on the subway, and say, your strategy to meet your need is I'm not appreciating it. Someone cuts you off on the highway. right? You roll down your window, and what do you say? That didn't meet my need for safety and stability. No, you go, you idiot, or something else, other words. But you don't know. If that person's rushing to a school to pick up their child, it got late, the lights are off, whoever was supposed to pick them up didn't. Can you see this? Does this make sense that people are not our judgments? And it's kind of a hard pill to swallow because we're so conditioned. Yes?
They do. I remember when I had to take, for that defensive driving, so you get the discount on your insurance plan. And that is a component. You don't know. Maybe they just came from a doctor's office and got bad medical news. Maybe, they got laid off. You never know when people get behind the wheel. So that's, kind of that whole thing about, you don't know what's behind the action or the behavior,
That's the way it is. And who teaches us? Where do we do a practice like this? So I ride my bike everywhere. Some people have said I ride my bike like I believe in reincarnation. Now, I somehow tend to cut off cars. Does anybody, it's like driving a bicycle in probably most of New York, all the boroughs, is like an extreme sport. But in Manhattan, I'm very careful with pedestrians, but I know when I can just kind of shove a car over and what's that? Yeah, I hope I'm not the guy who cut you off in your car, right? But, and it's not because I'm just rushing around. I'm not in Lancaster anymore. I'm in the New York, caught up in it. But lots of times, especially cabs, get really close to me. I still think these thoughts, I won't say the words here, but now it's like something goes across the computer screen in my mind and says, what was that? So I have a lifetime of conditioning. So I'm going to be judging people and situations for the rest of my life. But I don't now ride up to that car and go, you want to kill somebody? I could really use the money. Why don't you hit me next time? Like that sort of thing. Because I don't know. Well, I'm thinking the person driving that car, especially taxis, they're meeting their need for stability, movement, progress, security, take care of their family. Maybe the person that's with them is on their way to a hospital to save someone's life. So those thoughts are there along with the judgments. So it's made life a lot easier. Has anyone have been angry with somebody or a situation and carried that anger for hours? Days? Weeks? Years? No, okay. But that's it's a stressful way of living. And so this is just it's another way to think about people, especially people in general. Are they, what's our next one, Troy? Well, this is all think, we find that this builds resilience. Jim Sporleader endorsed our book, the book that we have. I tell people I wrote a book, and then I usually say, I didn't actually write it. I spoke a book, and I spoke and people typed. Because I can't think and make mistakes at the same time. But he endorsed our book, and and here's a principal who's now traveling around. He's actually meeting with heads of teachers' unions for entire states, who are interested in creating trauma-sensitive, trauma-informed environments in their schools. And so we can start to live in this world as opposed to the world of conflict with judgment. How much time do we have? Huh? Almost 2:15. Oh, okay. It's 2:10. So we're done at 2. Okay. I want to do one more quick exercise. If everybody could take your folder, there should be a blank piece of paper in it. Does everyone have the blank piece of paper? Oh, no, it's okay. On the other side, if you have room. Okay, you don't need the whole piece of paper. If you can, at the top of the piece of paper, about 1.5 inches down, draw a line. Draw a line, and now make a T. Draw a line down the middle. In the middle, make a T. You're going to make a line across, line down, you're making a T. Okay, at the top, Write down something that someone said or did that you didn't like, that annoyed you. Not something tragic, but something. I first wrote down, a friend of mine said, you waste so much time. If somebody was contributing to our nonprofit, he said, you waste so much time. So I wrote that down. So something like that. Not really, life-changing. Take a moment, think about something someone said or did you didn't like, annoyed you. Okay, write that across the top of that line. Does anybody need more time? Yeah, at the top, where that space above the T. Now, some people start writing for like 20 minutes. It's just keep it simple. Okay, does everybody have something? Okay, underneath the T, just underneath the line at the top, write an F, and on the other side write an N. Use your needs and feelings list. Look at the feelings. What feelings did you have? Write down a few feelings, or write down many feelings. How did you feel when that person said or did what they did? Look at your feelings list. What were you feeling and what were you needing? Or just what were you feeling? Look at if you can't look at your feelings list. That's going to give you a whole vocabulary to describe what did I feel when that person said, you waste so much time. What time is it, Troy? What time? Is it 2:15?
2:13.
2:13, okay. Okay, now write down what were you needing. Turn the needs and feelings list over. What were you needing? What needs were not met? What needs were not met when that person said, you waste a lot of time, which was said to me? What needs were not met? Okay, how are we doing? Does anybody need more time? Yeah, I see some people are still writing. What needs were not met when that person said or did that? If you have a question you want to ask your neighbor, be sure to look in their left eye. Okay? Now draw a line under that, if you still have some room. Well, draw a line under the needs and feelings that you just expressed. Now, write down what you think that person who said or did that was feeling. Look at your feelings. You're not sure, but guess. What were they feeling when my friend said, you waste so much time? Imagine what they maybe were feeling, okay? What was that person feeling who said something that you didn't like, that annoyed or disappointed you? And now write down what you think their needs may have been that weren't met when they said or did. What needs did they have that weren't met when they said something that annoyed or disappointed you? Okay, still, some people are still writing. Oh, yeah. We'll do that at the end. Okay. Does anyone want to share anything you saw about this? I need to start journaling. Did anybody see that person had similar feelings and needs? How many of you saw something similar? Can you raise your hand? What? What's in the back?
I want to share in the back.
Oh, do you want to share something about that?
It was similar. When I wrote down my feelings and needs of what they said, and then when I wrote down why they conveyed what they said, a lot of the feelings that were unmet and met and the needs were similar in nature.
Yeah. A lot of people have that experience. But even if you didn't have that, do you have a little more understanding about that person? Is there anybody that doesn't understand that person a little better? This is a great exercise for students. Kids that are having a problem with someone. So, yeah, I saw that the person said, why do you waste so much time? Was frustrated and annoyed. I was frustrated and annoyed. It didn't meet my need for respect, didn't meet his need for respect. So does everyone see how this can also be another tool that you can use with students? We're coming near the end. Everybody should have in your folder an evaluation form. If you would be so kind and fill that out, it helps us, suggestions, helps us to make changes and improve this. I prefer honesty over politeness, so whatever you think you got out of it, where you think it can be improved, and if you'll put your name, print it clearly, and email, we'll send you a copy of our book. But please print clearly, because often we can't read emails when we work in groups. So please take 2 minutes to fill out the evaluation form, and then you could leave it on the desk, and we'll all pick it up afterwards. Do you want to take a look at the book? Yeah, we're going to send everybody.
This one, right?
Yeah, we're going to send everybody a PDF of the book, and huh? What? Do I have 10 minutes? He gave me a 5-minute warning. Oh, it's only 2:20. Okay. 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 Thank you. Well, no, because they're writing on their evaluation site. So. You can even write down what you're needing and feeling. Huh? Yeah, I think it went well. People seem to be engaged. I kept looking for you.
We're having a meeting.
I figured this out. Okay. So we have till 2:30, or do I have a little bit of time for Q&A, or you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, because we want to get them out by 2:30, we promised.
Okay. I'm going to ask them if we can interview some. Okay. Okay. Do we?
Do you do 90-minute PDs? 'Cause every Monday we have a 90-minute
Okay.
PD.
The question is, would we do a 90-minute PD? Yes. We'll do a 90-day PD. We want to get this work out into, especially into the school system. So we can send you information. Please, again, give us your email, even if you don't want the book. We can on our website, you'll find the empathy piece. You can download that. You don't have to worry about this piece getting bent or torn. Also, the needs and feelings is on our homepage as well. And there's a 15-minute interview that I did with the radio station. Ironically, it was a country and western station in Manhattan, because there's a lot of people into, is anyone into country and western? There is a bit, you know, New York. There's a lot of people. And in those 15 minutes, we explained pretty much all that I explained, what we talked about today. Now, if anyone would be willing to spend a couple minutes after we're closing up now, we would love to just interview people for 30 seconds or a minute. It really is so helpful for us to be able to show that on our website. That's the only place it will be. It will be not used for anything else. So if anyone's willing, we'd be very grateful. And I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for taking part. Oh, and our curriculum and book, and if we don't have to leave here right at 2:30. Okay, so I'm happy to speak with anybody. You have my card. You have all of our printed material. If you want to show it to your colleagues, especially show it to the principal, see if there's an interest. We do half-day PDs. We do full day. And we're very grateful to be working in the New York City school system.
Ladies and gentlemen, before you get up and you go, we just have 2 more things that we want to say to you and give you. Number 1, we want to say thank you so much for being here today. Give yourself a nice round of applause. Number 2, before you leave, we do have an evaluation. You don't have to fill it out. It's an online evaluation. Santi, Jesse, and Maria are going to be giving out some copies.
Good to see you. Good. Oh, we really enjoyed working with these. Amazing. You know, Deborah's like, oh my God. She should make a video.
Right there on the flyer.
Did you ever sit in one of her instructional, she gives like a PD? It's incredible. Yeah. But she's just so dynamic.